Good evening, Pulak. How are you?
Yes, perfectly fine. So, Professor Sahai, I mean, before you start off, I would like to take some time off from the audience to introduce you to the audience, and I will set a flow of the entire webinar today. So, I'll just start off. Welcome and thank you for entering your time today. Uh, very good evening and a warm welcome, to the IIM Ahmedabad webinar on insights to the fintech program. Thank you indeed for entering your valuable time for this info webinar. So as you know that India is poised to emerge as a leading digital economy in the world. India is the world's #1 country on data usage and is second only to China in number of internet users. Mostly usage users has grown 15 times. Monthly data usage and user growth has grown 15 times since 2014 and is estimated to treble in the forthcoming years. Uh, with 425 million internet users and 303 smartphone users, India is the leading Facebook country in the world with 270 million users per month. In fact, India has the highest fintech adoption rate and second largest fintech startup base in the world, so far. To understand the impact of disruption in the financial industry caused by the fintech tsunami and to develop insights into the link between technology, regulation, and consumer adoption in an increasingly digitalized world, IIM Ahmedabad is organizing a short duration live online program on fintech, business models, marketing, strategy and tactics starting November 21, 2020. Uh, we are indeed delighted to have Professor Arvind Sahai amidst us, who is the program co-chair for the fintech program. A very warm welcome to Professor Sahai. We will open up for Q&A, which will be moderated by Suresh after Professor Sahai completes his discussion on the webinar topic. Meanwhile, you can keep posting your queries on the chat option, which we will respond to you. For few chat options and the queries which are not responded on forum because of paucity of time, we will definitely get back to you and revert to you over mail. If you allow me to introduce Professor Arvind Sahai today. So Dr. Arvind Sahai is PhD from the University of Texas, Austin. He is a PGDBM from IIM Ahmedabad and a BTech from IIT Kanpur. Professor Sahai joined IIM in June 2004 from London Business School, where he had been teaching since his PhD in 1996 from the University of Texas at Austin. Before his PhD, he worked in the banking sector in India as account manager and customer service manager. His areas of interest include marketing strategy, pricing, high-tech marketing, international trade and investment, strategic management, brand management, neuroscience, consumer behavior, and decision making. He is a very well-known and senior faculty in the marketing domain. His paper in the Journal of Academy of Marketing Science is one of the most widely cited papers in marketing. He has been a regular columnist for Outlook Business Magazine on marketing strategy and also writes for leading business publications. He is the author of a case book on marketing strategy called Cases in Pricing, Marketing Communications, and Distribution. Professor Sahai is also the recipient of the Innovation in Teaching Award at London Business School and of the Devang Mehta Best Teacher Award in Marketing Management and the UTB Bloomberg Best Marketing Professor Award in India. In 2013, he was nominated to the Thinkers 50 India list by the Institute of Competitiveness, Harvard Business School. He is a renowned marketing consultant and independent director on the board of Brandscapes Consultancy Private Limited, IFCI Limited, and GNFC Limited. I render a warm welcome to Professor Sahai, and I would grant the forum to Professor Sahai to take this forward. Welcome.
Thank you, Pulak, for that extended introduction. I think I'm here today just as the faculty co-chair of the program. My interest in fintech flows from some of the stuff that Pulak talked about to you. I started my career as a banker, and I've always maintained an interest in financial services. A lot of my work is at the intersection of marketing and financial services, which is the application area for what I do. So neuroscience and behavior, how investors behave, how retail investors behave, how wealth managers behave, how people who take loans behave, how people who give loans behave, and so on. So that's where I come from when I'm looking at fintech as an area of application. So we started this program a couple of years ago. I should introduce my co-chair also to you. His name is Rajan Raju. He is also a PGDM from IIM Ahmedabad, PGP 88, and he has spent a lot of time in banking, Citibank quite a bit. He was also the chief operating officer of DBS in Singapore, and he is an external advisor, technology consultant to McKinsey, and runs his own investment company, investment advisory company. He's based out of Singapore, and he and I run this program together. Now, this program is primarily intended for those people who want to understand the fintech landscape in India and who want to understand the fintech landscape more generally, globally, and the Indian context of the fintech landscape, uh, so that they are able to do a better job of whatever it is that they are doing in fintech, whether from the perspective of a fintech startup or from the perspective of a large financial institution. It could be a bank, it could be a mutual fund, it could be an investment advisory, it could be a wealth management firm, it could be a family office, all of those larger organizations that can use fintech. So your current role might be to be looking at the use of fintech, the use of fintech from a payments perspective, the use of fintech from a lending perspective, the use of fintech from a cybersecurity and security perspective, the use of fintech from the perspective of giving out loans. There are multiple perspectives and areas in which fintech is rolling out. In fact, as Pulak mentioned, we have the second largest number of startups in the world in fintech after the US, more than 4,000 startups on fintech in India as of the first half of 2020. So the purpose of this program essentially is to help these people in both sides of the aisle, if you will, to appreciate what is the nature of fintech and then to be able to take better decisions. What kind of better decisions are we talking about? Better decisions, for example, if I am a payment fintech or I am a cybersecurity fintech, what should I be doing next? Should I be partnering with another startup? Should I be partnering with a large firm? How should I sell to a large firm? If I have a fintech based cybersecurity solution that I have done, if I am a fintech that has a blockchain based solution, what should I be doing? By the same token, if I'm on the other side, I'm a large bank and I'm exploring how to use fintech to roll out better lending services, or I'm exploring fintech how to provide better payment services to my customers, or I'm exploring fintech to be able to provide better wealth management services to my customers. So we should be able to answer some of those questions for the participants of the program. So what will the program actually cover? The program will cover, therefore, the answers to these questions. We will understand what are the underlying technologies that are driving the growth of fintech. We will understand how people are going to adopt, where are they in the adoption process. Very importantly, we will understand the regulatory dimensions which are also influencing the adoption of fintech. So in a sense, the program is built around those three legs of the tripod: technology, regulation, and adoption. So, what are the different technologies in payments? What are the different technologies in lending? What are the different technologies underlying blockchain? What are the underlying technologies in AI, ML, which are driving some of the other customer applications? Then, where is the adoption process from different perspectives? How are the banks adopting it? How are mutual funds adopting it? How is the government adopting fintech for that matter? And again, from the other side, what are the startups using as technologies in the adoption process? And then finally, very key to the entire process is the role of regulation. We often underestimate the role of regulation at our peril. I recall one gentleman who had come to us 2 years ago who was running a fintech which had been doing work in blockchain and Bitcoin. and he had a fantastic technology as a fintech startup in the area of blockchain, but his application area had just been upended because the RBI had said, we are no longer going to permit Bitcoin based trading and Bitcoin based services in the country. And that caused a huge amount of problem because nothing of that had been anticipated. So when you go through the program, at the end of the program, our hope is, Rajan and I would like to think that you are able to anticipate issues like these from a perspective of regulation, from a perspective of technologies to use and not use, and from the perspective of what is it that the adoption process is going to look like. And we will cover this in a fair amount of detail. So, for example, if I look at blockchain, what is blockchain? How does it work? What does it take to get a blockchain based platform and service up and running? There is a case, for example, that I have written, which is the HSBC case on trade finance, which is now a commercial operation available as a service from HSBC, where we will look at how HSBC was able to put it together, but it took them 3 years to put it together. And now it is offered as a service to their customers. Now, there is a context to that particular blockchain based service which is being offered. There are some small startups which are associated, there are many other large firms which are associated, and there are many government agencies which are also associated. So one will be able to appreciate at the end of the process how one can put together a blockchain based service for different kinds of customers. What are some of the challenges that one faces? Similarly for credit, similarly for payment systems, for lending, for security. And underlying all of these is the idea of how regulation is going to influence what we are doing as a fintech. So you should be prepared, therefore, to get your hands a little bit dirty, to be able to spend a little bit of effort to understand some of the underlying technology. And also not just to do the deep dive into the technology, but also to step back up from the technology and then look at it from a 20,000 feet, 30,000 feet perspective to see, okay, where is it that I'm actually competing as a fintech or as a large financial services firm? How do I use fintech to get the maximum advantage for me? So we will do what we call as a multiple T's, some breadth across the fintech landscape and some depth into some of the technologies, the regulation and the adoption issues. One question that we often get asked is, as an educator, it's a question that I am a little bit reluctant to address because my job is to provide the education. But I recognize that from your perspective, you're interested in how will it help you in your job. Will it help you make job movements? So absolutely, if you are working for a large bank that is looking at deploying fintech in various areas, after this program, I would be very, I would unequivocally say that you should be in a position to bring up ideas and proposals to execute some of these fintech based initiatives within the bank. And that should definitely give you some degrees of freedom on what kind of assignments the bank might be willing to give you. On the other hand, if you are working in a fintech startup, whether it is angel funded or series A, B, C, D, wherever you are in the startup cycle, you will be able to get a better outcome for your startup if you are able to do this program and you're able to carry away the key learnings from the program. So for those of you who are interested in the fintech space, who want to work in the fintech space or want to be able to take advantage of fintech, if you are working for large BFSI firms, my sense is that this is probably the only program of its kind that is being offered in the country at this point in time, at least. This is a program that will be conducted over about 6 weeks. Every weekend, I think we are going to have four sessions, if I remember right, Suresh. And the idea is that over these 6 weeks, depending on the number of signups that we have, we will also try to be able to provide you inputs for particular projects that we can also run during the program. That's something that will be a function of the number of people who sign up. So I can go on and talk a lot more about the program itself, but perhaps it might be a better idea if we open it up for questions. Just before we open it up for questions, I will just do a quick recap. So, what is the program about? The program is about giving you the perspective and some tools and depth about fintech from both perspectives, whether from the perspective of the fintech startup, small company that is deploying particular technologies, or from the perspective of large BFSI firms, banking services, financial services, insurance firms that want to use fintech. It will help you gain the knowledge, the tools, the perspective for to be able to increase the probability of job movements within your firm, as well as maybe even to get some jobs in the startup space if that's what you're looking for. And the program is a 25 session program over 6 weeks. And at the end of it, we, for those of you who are interested in that kind of thing, we do offer a certificate of participation that shows that you have attended the program at the online programs of IIM Ahmedabad. Um, so let me stop there, and I'm open to any questions that you would have for me.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions coming as of now. Karan Arara is asking, I work for a multinational audit firm, auditing fintech companies based out of US. And will this program help me to understand my, because I think this question is because more he's into auditing fintech company in US. So will this program help me?
So, Karan, what is it that you are looking for from the program if you are currently auditing fintech firms in the US? What is it that you are looking for as the chairman of the audit committee of a financial services firm? There can be multiple things that you can be looking for. I sit on the board of a non-banking financial services firm, and I'm the chairman of the audit committee. Now, I can think of at least 7 or 8 different things that one would want to audit in this. From an Indian perspective, it could be the internal financial controls. It could be whether you are compliant with other regulations. It could be about the internal operational processes. What is it that you are looking for?
Hi, basically, I'm more interested towards how can this program benefit me considering all my experience so far, and in like coming times, how can like I benefit from this program considering I have an audit experience, not the specifically fintech industry experience from the client side, from the auditor side.
So depending on the goals that you have, Karan, I'm assuming that at some point you will want to grow into a role as maybe, I don't know, as if you're doing audit services just now, maybe as a company secretary or a CFO. So if you're looking to grow into those roles, I think this program would be of benefit. If you are looking to grow into roles within the fintech sector itself, it would definitely benefit you. Remember, IIM Ahmedabad comes with a legacy of management problems. So while we do programs like this, which are sector specific and which are focused around a particular set of technologies, regulations, and adoption, our orientation is management related. So
Yeah.
our programs come from that perspective of solving problems. So whenever we are looking at fintech, for example, payments, and we are looking at UPI and the different payment services which are going on, our approach and perspective and orientation is to help you solve problems in that payment space. So we will use our pedagogy will use lots of cases, for examples uh, from our own experience, and the cases that we have written and cases that other people have written to help to solve problems. So one key thing that I think anyone who attends a program, any program at IIM Ahmedabad, including this one, is that around the theme of the program, they will be able to solve more problems. And what kind of problems? While there is an overall set which is built around technology, regulation, and adoption, the exact nature is the learning that you carry away with you. We have an objective at the back of our minds as to this. These are some of the content areas and these are some of the key learning points that we want to cover during these 25 sessions. But part of the learning also is a function of what you bring to the table and how you interact with us and your peer group during this whole process. So will it help you? Absolutely. One last point that I would add is how much you gain out of the program is also a function of how much you put into the program, right? Education is a very strange product. You're not, it's better said in Hindi. I don't know how well you understand Hindi, Karan. ये आप जो हैं ये प्याज टमाटर आलू नहीं खरीद रहे हैं. You're not buying tomatoes and potatoes and onions. You are buying education. Unfortunately, when you buy education, you cannot just expect to pay the money and expect the benefit to drop into your head. You will have to work, and that work will take the form of doing a fair amount of reading that we will prescribe, the pre-reads as they are called these days. And you will have to come prepared to engage with the faculty, me and my colleague and maybe one or two others, and to engage with the other participants of the program. So if you're prepared to do that, one thing that I can say with confidence is that you will gain a lot, both in terms of perspective and in terms of tools. And those two taken together will help you grow in your current firm, I would say, and also open up more opportunities for you.
Yeah, thanks, Professor. There's a question from Ankur Mehta. How will fintech help a credit manager in a lending space? So, I think he is with a banking or some lending company.
Yeah. So if you are in the credit space, I think those people who work in the credit space understand that credit is about making sure that you are letting the right people into the funnel, that you are doing the due diligence to make sure that the person who gets the credit, the loan, is capable of repaying it, and then you monitor the utilization of the funds, and then you make sure that it is repaid. Now, all of those things are required whether you're using fintech or you're using the traditional way of doing things. So the way that this course would help you is to be able to figure out how to incorporate those operational processes in the lending requirements, in the lending process within a fintech based framework. So if you want to, for example, use fintech to do the lending process, what will happen? How will you make sure that all the compliance requirements are met? What kind of technology will you deploy to be able to go through the processes, to do the KYC, to assess the creditworthiness, to be able to understand what it is that the customer operations need, what aspects of the customer operations need monitoring, how do I do that from a technology perspective, and then to be able to deploy fintech again to enable the repayments, which will mean some elements of the payment systems. So that is the way in which this can contribute to being able to assess what will be the contribution of fintech in the lending space. As of today, out of the 4,000 odd startups in the country in the fintech area, probably around 500 or 600 are in the payment space, if I remember right. Let me just see if I can pull it up over here. I just had a look at it a little while ago. Yeah, so we have about 405 in the first half of 2020. There were 405 startups, fintech startups in the payment space, 365 in the lending, 313 in wealth tech, 173 in personal finance management, 111 in insurance technology, 58 in cyber security and regulation technology, and the remaining in others.
Yeah, there's a question from Sharad Dubey. He wants to know, he has got 3 to 4 years of experience in finance. Finance means, I assume, he is in core finance function. Will this help me into breaking into a fintech space?
So Sharad, what is your 3 to 4 years of experience just now in finance about? What is it that you have done so far, and what is it that you are doing just now?
Sharad Dubey?
Sharad, you can unmute and speak.
Sharad, you can also unmute and speak. Sharad Dubey. Okay, we'll come back to
Suresh, you have gone on mute just now.
Sorry. We'll come back to his question now, after he is able to unmute. There's a question from Arbilasha. How will it be helpful for a lawyer? It's a very interesting question.
Uh, for a lawyer, actually, I think we need more lawyers on the program, Abhilasha. Um, the very interesting thing about fintech is how much of a role actually regulation has to play in what kind of fintech ultimately gets rolled out. So if you look at something like Bitcoin, for example, the legal landscape on Bitcoin has changed quite a bit over the last 4 years. First, there was a complete gray zone. There was nothing that was there in the statute book about whether or not it is permitted. You could take some existing regulations, existing clauses of existing statute book regulations and say that perhaps yes, perhaps no. Then sometime in 2018, RBI comes along and says, actually, you know what, we don't like Bitcoin at all, and we think that you should not be doing any transactions of Bitcoin. And if you are doing so, it is illegal and you can go to jail. And obviously, by that time, there were quite a few fintech based startups and some large companies which were doing transactions in Bitcoin. And being an open society with a rule of law, some people went to court. And the courts finally went up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court has found that actually the RBI could not have prescribed that particular rule, saying that you cannot do it. So as of now, the rule book says that you can do Bitcoin based transactions. The next step in the process, of course, is that the policymakers are now kind of thinking about what kind of laws to frame for the Bitcoin based transactions in this country. So the fintech space is actually what I call as the Wild West for the law. And lawyers who get into this space just now and understand the underlying drivers of what are the possibilities in fintech, understand what kind of law will work best, may well be in a position to be the pioneers, to be the leaders in this new emerging arena. Remember that fintech essentially is about enablement of payments, enablement of finance, enablement of business. Finance is the grease that enables all business, and fintech is the technology that makes this grease a lot more efficient. And fintech requires a lot more of regulatory oversight compared to the earlier regimes of the law, for the reason that technology, fintech actually allows you to do so many more things that were simply not possible earlier. Simple stuff like movement of information or movement of money, which had a certain speed, a certain scale earlier, is now at a different scale altogether. So therefore, for lawyers, those of amongst the lawyers who are looking to get in at the ground floor as this particular area grows and expands, this would be a very useful course. Having said that, I should also add that for lawyers, unlike other participants where the application would be much more direct and immediate, for lawyers, the participation would be more from a perspective of getting a hang of the space, getting a hang of the regulatory landscape that is in existence just now and that is required. And the payback might well happen over a few years. So if you are looking for an immediate application tomorrow, you do the course between November and December and you want to apply it immediately in January of 2021, then the chances are that that's not going to happen. But if you are looking for an immersion in the space, which allows you to then take advantage of opportunities as and when they arise, then definitely this is a course for you, Abhilasha, that I would recommend, because I don't think that between Rajan, Raju and me and a colleague of mine, what we have to offer is presently there to the best of my knowledge at any other institution in India at this point in time.
Yeah, the next question is from Shivam Agarwal. What he is again, he is also asking an interesting question. How will it help a software engineer who is working in a fintech space?
So can I ask him as to what kind of software engineering is he doing?
Shivam, Shivam Agarwal. You can unmute and talk. Yeah, go ahead, Shivam. Go ahead. You are unmuted.
Hello. So my company is a lending company. It's a fintech lender, and I'm basically working on the side of where customer flow happens, like his KYC online application form. He fills the complete journey, and then finally we do our scorecards, we pull civil and see if we should give the customer. We run our scorecards to find out at what rate of interest we should give. We are basically unsecured lenders. We don't take collaterals. We give unsecured loans. So I work on that flow, and I have worked with the flow where we actually manage the loans once we have given the loan also. So, and I have worked with product managers also to see how things are working in the company. So I want to know
I
will
assume,
how will this.
I assume Shivam that you are an engineer
Yeah,
and this is your first job where you've been working now for a while.
yeah,
So I think Shivam, for a person like you, the value of the course will be from two dimensions. The first dimension is that you will gain a much better understanding of the space. For people who want to progress in corporate life in fintech, whether it is fintech or any other space, who want to climb the ladder, who want to grow professionally, a critical requirement is a deep understanding of the landscape of that particular industry that you are working in. So that's one dimension that I think we will be able to provide. The other is you are working in the lending arena, you said. Now, fintech is much more than just lending. And to increase the scope of the opportunities that you can avail of, you need to then leverage the understanding of the space. So for that, you have to understand the other spaces as well: payments, security, wealth management, insurance, uh, from the technology aspect, from the regulatory aspect, from the adoption aspect, how the market is evolving, how it is likely to evolve. So if you do all of that, the potential opportunities that open up for you rise. And the last way I think that it will benefit you is from the perspective of giving you a sense of how to do your present job even better, because now that you have a improved understanding of the entire space and how it fits into what customers are doing, that will allow you to come up with ideas of your own, which most engineers may not have the knowledge, the perspective, and the tools to be able to come up with. So those are the three things that I can think of in which way that this course might benefit you.
Yeah, the next question is from Cyril Jos. Please share your perspective on fintech versus techfin and the scope for Indian startup tech companies in financial services.
So before I kind of respond to that, Cyril, do you want to tell me what you think is the difference between fintech and techfin?
Cyril, you can unmute and talk. Cyril Jos. Okay.
So Cyril, let me respond anyway to your question. Fintech is about a place
Yeah,
where,
I got. Sorry,
Hanji,
I was unable to.
go
I was
ahead.
Unmute.
unable to unmute.
Yeah.
Unable
Now you
to.
are unmuted.
So
Go ahead, Cyril.
yeah, so if you see the global landscape, Google, Amazon, tech giants have forayed into the financial services space. But in Indian context, I've not seen any major players getting into financial services. So I would like to understand, especially on the startup tech companies, what will be their scope getting into financial services?
Uh, okay, so what you are saying is that whether in India it will be financial services companies that will use technology much more, or it will be the technology companies that will move into financial services much more relative to the global peers. That's what I understand from your question. Um, so over
Yes.
there, that's a very what we call as a path dependent uh, issue, right? So in China, for example, what has happened? Fintech is being dominated like by the likes of Ant Financial. Now, what is the provenance, the background of a company like that? They start out with services and technology, and then evolve into the finance space. Uh, Google is another one that you can argue starts off from the technology space and then tries to evolve into the finance space. In India, you don't really have technology companies of that scale and scope at the moment. So it is arguable whether or not there will be technology companies that will evolve into the finance space. It is also arguable from the other side whether the financial companies in India have the technology knowledge, skills, the wherewithal, the inclination, and the organizational skills to be able to become successful to adopt technology in a way, the fintech technology in a way that is successfully integrated into their companies. The likelihood is, from where I am sitting, the likelihood is much more that they will either work with or be able to acquire fintech companies that they then integrate into their operations. That's the way it is likely to evolve. And that has to do with the way the regulation is kind of set up in our country, the financial sector regulators. So if you look at the regulators in our country, we have the RBI, of course. We also have the SEBI. We have that is the Security Exchange Board of India. You also have the IRDA, the Insurance Regulation Development Authority. And then you have the new one, which is just coming up, which is the International Financial Services Center Authority, based out of the Gift City in Gandhinagar, which is going to do the International Bullion Exchange. And so that's four. And then you have the fifth one, the warehousing one, which regulates the movement of precious metals. So there are these different regulatory uh, bodies, regulators in a sense, that influence the way in which the sector is going to evolve. And at this point in time, one would probably think that it is going to be a case where there are going to be large amount of fintechs, 4,000 of them and counting. And many of these will then get integrated into larger financial services firms. Most of the large financial services firms, and I sit on the board of one of them, I do not think have the ability or the thinking to be able to develop nuanced fintech approaches on their own, because many of them do not understand the space. And that is where the role of technology and startups and people who are doing those startups comes in. So a long answer to your short question is it's an evolving space, and whether it will be fintech or techfin, uh, it's likely to be a combination of both with a bias towards one side.
Yeah, there's a question from Rahul B. He runs a technology company and he is planning to adding fintech as part of his service offerings. And he is asking whether am I in the right place with this program?
So Rahul, you'll have to kind of tell me a little bit more on what exactly your company does. What kind of financial services are you offering? Who are your customers? For your customers, what would be the delta benefit that fintech might offer uh, that the customer would really, really want to have? And if you're able to give me a sense of that, then I think I'll be able to give you a better response.
Am I, are you able to hear
You
me?
are audible. Rahul, go ahead. Rahul, go on.
Loud and
Okay.
clear.
Okay. So, yeah, thank for addressing the question. Now, basically, my company is delivering the solutions. We are building solution in terms of enterprise web applications and mobile application and that sort of thing. And some of the applications that we are building, they are already processing, online payments and all. But it's not like, it's like maybe 5%, 10% of clients are coming up with that sort of needs. But we want to portray ourselves as somebody who is pretty much equipped to provide such solution, which basically catering into financial industry. So my question is like, I want to, basically I'm a co-founder of the company. So I want to set up a new service where we have people, it can start with me or somebody from my team, but we should have that sort of knowledge to provide and go step further and provide that sort of, I would say, exclusive services, being a part of portfolio.
So if I understood you right, Rahul, essentially the challenge for you is that as a relatively young company, you have what I would say is a narrow range of products and services for a limited number of customers. And you would like to be able to build a reputation or some level of credibility so you are able to sell more easily to a larger number of customers, not just the present set of web-based applications, but a larger number of applications that you are capable of developing. So that's a very classic marketing problem, except that your marketing problem is set in the fintech space. Now, the program that we have has adoption, customer adoption or policy adoption as one of the three legs of the stool that we are addressing, right? Technology, regulation, and adoption. So yes, we will be covering many dimensions of the adoption process from the customer perspective of what might enable fintech companies to be able to sell better their technologies to particular BFSI, banking and financial service and insurance companies in a better way. The challenge in these instances tends to arise from the following. First, the companies which are potentially looking to adopt your technology in many instances are faced with the issue of, this is a young company. I'm going to adopt a technology which is going to provide a critical service to my customers. Is this technology going to be robust enough? How do I mitigate the risk of adopting something that is relatively new, unproven? And if I'm a public sector firm, especially, but even for private sector firms, I don't want to get into trouble for adopting this new technology. And then the second issue is, if I do adopt the technology, how do I then roll it out within my firm? What are the issues relating to retraining of my own workforce? And the third one is, how much is it going to cost me? Is this guy going to be around tomorrow to service the issues, the problems that are going to arise when I deploy it? Because till it becomes stable, there are going to be some issues. So those are some of the very classic technology adoption issues. And in many of these sessions, this is going to be the focus of our learning points, where we are looking at who will adopt, how much they will adopt, and how one can accelerate that process by adopting the right technology tools, by adopting the right selling approach, maybe even the pricing that is required in the fintech space. So I hope that kind of addresses what you are looking at, Rahul.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Next question is from Aruna Perumal. Apparently, she is our SMP3 candidate, alumni, and she is a HR head in a fintech startup, and she wanted to know whether she can nominate her leadership team, business operations head and product head, for this program.
Absolutely, absolutely. The only thing that I would ask is that they need to kind of share with us what their expectations are from the program, what your expectations are from the program, so that when we look at the profiles of the people who have signed on, we can tweak the program to be able to better meet the needs of the participants. While we do have an overall structure in mind, and a lot of the structure and some of the details are reasonably well defined, but we do make adjustments depending on the profile of the people who finally sign up on the program.
Yeah. Next question is from Bhupendra. I have been working as business head credit card sales, digital acquisition for leading fintech company. How would this program help? And do we get an alumni status?
So again, I'm going to ask you, what is it that you're looking for from the program?
Yeah, Bhupendra, you can unmute and talk.
Yeah, hi, good evening. So, my expectations are, I hope I'm audible to everyone.
Loud.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so in fact, I have worked with multiple banks in the last 4 years probably. I have been managing one of the leading fintech for their strategy vision, and we have been scaling. In fact, now the as you know, I've been hearing you, and probably we are experiencing. There are the lenders and probably the developers or master of the product, and then we are there. Then probably offline market is also there. Now the current challenges and the issues which fintechs are facing in terms of scaling up, in terms of customer adoption. So how would fintechs be able to reach to that scale where most of the fintechs at this point of time are actually burning the money. So how are they going to survive with this COVID etc coming up? Most of them are even facing the funding issues also. So how they're gonna reach to a threshold where they scale, they achieve the customer adaptability, and then they move up to the next scale. So this is typically I wanted to understand that from you expert how would we gain next set of skills.
So Bhupendra, in terms of how firms will become successful, how an entrepreneur will become successful, I think if you're working for a startup or a small company, you already know that most startups will fail. It's a given. And the reason that they will fail is either because they are too early, or they are too late, or they don't have the right technology, or they don't have the right marketing. Uh, and the right marketing will include being able to judge customer readiness to adopt, having the right price, building the ecosystem, and so on. So, from all of those perspectives from which a startup or a young company can fail, the program essentially is able to hopefully provide inputs that allow one to recognize what am I doing right and what am I not doing right. Am I offering the right suite of products for the target customer? Is my technology the one that is going to provide the maximum bang for the buck for my customer? And is that it's the one that I as a company have the greatest level of skill in, and am actually able to provide a difference compared to other people who are providing something similar? Am I pricing it right for the customer? Is my model of engagement with the customer the right one? So these are some of the issues that we will address from the adoption and the technology perspective. And if those are of interest, then it is something that might be worthwhile for any fintech entrepreneur, startup that is looking at it, at being able to improve their own set of skills, their ability to make the right calls. Hopefully that is the agenda, the aim of the program. So absolutely, I think it will be helpful from that perspective. But then you have to come to the program with the idea that okay, these are 5 or 6 things that our company as a whole is facing as a challenge. Now, at the end of the program, it is not our job, Rajan's job or my job to answer those specific questions for you specifically as a company. But what we will do during the course of the 25 sessions is to cover the issues from many different perspectives with enough examples so that you are able to see, okay, you know what, this is something that we can try. This is something that we need to change. This is something that we need to drop. So that is the purpose of the program, and that is how the program is designed. And hopefully, that is something that is of appeal to you.
Yeah. The next question is from Vikas Sharma, and he says, "I am working with the largest bank in Middle East. I understand it is easier for new disruptors like Revolut to gain market share than an existing old organization like SBI to transform itself. As an operational risk professional, how can this program benefit me individually? How does this program differentiate itself from the other programs offered by Wharton, IMD, etc.? And what would be the investment return ratio like? And is there an alumni badge? Why is RBI not coming? There are multiple questions to it. The last question he's saying is, why is RBI not coming out with an extensive guideline notification to cover fintech players under its ambit? Should I break the questions?
I don't know where to begin.
Should I break it up?
Let me start off just with the first one. He said that he's an operations professional, and how will the program be of benefit to an operations risk professional? So if your financial service firm is looking at deploying fintech in particular areas, whether it is in payments or in lending or in insurance or in wealth management or in cybersecurity, if your financial service firm is thinking of deploying fintech in any one of these areas, then having done this program, you would be in a better place to be able to understand what are the operational parameters involved in the deployment of fintech in many of these areas. And so to that extent, you will have a better appreciation of what it is that you need to do as an operations risk professional. Having said that, that is not the purpose of the program, to help an operational risk professional in a large firm. That is, our program design is not intended for that narrow a segment. It will still help you, but our program is not designed for that. Our program is built, and this is how I think it is different from the other places that you cited, who may be running similar programs. Our program is built on that tripod, right? Regulation, technology, and adoption. And what we would like you to be able to do is to gain an understanding and perspective and appreciation of how fintech actually works around those three legs of the tripod, and why any successful deployment requires an appreciation of all those three, an anticipation of what is going to happen in those three, and then the design of actions. So even more than being able to do a good job in operational risk assessment and performance of that job, what I would like to hope is that if someone like you decides to sign on for the program, that at the end of the program, you are able to appreciate the nuances of fintech across different operational areas, and you are able to go back into your financial services firm and say that, hey, you know what? I think we can deploy fintech in these 4 other areas that we are not looking at. This is how we will do it. This is what we need to anticipate in the deployment process. And if we do it, then as a business, this is what is going to be the business case. So my goal would be to get you as an operational risk professional and make you not just a better operational risk professional, but also into a manager who is able to appreciate the implications of operational risk for business, and probably also to deploy more business related to fintech.
Yeah, there's a question from Vikas Bera. Is it useful for non-technical person? I have a non-engineering background. I think nothing more he has given. Vikas?
Oh, 100%. You know, my co-chair, faculty co-chair, he's a commerce graduate from SRCC, right? I'm the engineer. Uh, so 100%. And if he can appreciate the technology, you can do it very quite easily. So, you know,
Yeah.
don't
The
let
next question is from Sudhanshu. Uh, I am heading a retail online banking channel of a largest Islamic bank in Qatar. I am looking on how to evaluate fintech to onboard them, and how to evaluate the regulatory aspect, if any, in terms of understanding and convincing the central bank related to its adoption.
So I think we have kind of addressed this in many other ways. So the quick
Yeah.
answer to your question is yes, absolutely.
Sharad Dubey says I'm an equity analyst and interview management regarding strategies. Need to break into fintech space. Will it be beneficial for me?
You know, whether it will be beneficial for you or not, if you are an equity analyst and you wanted to break into the fintech space, I don't know. That only you can answer for yourself. What it will help you to do is to gain enough knowledge, perspective, and an idea of the tools and what works and what does not. And if that knowledge, perspective, utilization, the ability to utilize the tools and to understand and anticipate actions, if that is helpful to you to break into the fintech space, by all means, yes. But as I said at the beginning, and now we are kind of coming to the close of our session, as I said at the beginning, you know, if you sign on, you're signing on for an educational program. And in an educational program, what you get out of it is a function of what you put into it. You know, my colleagues and I will help facilitate that process of onboarding that knowledge. But you know, you're not buying tomatoes and potatoes and onions. Buying knowledge requires you to put in that effort. If you are willing to put in that effort, 100% it will help you. Whether you are able to break into that space, I don't know. Only you and God know.
Yeah, we'll take the last question because I think we are almost towards the closing stages. I work with a Shankar Raja. I work with a wealth management firm and heading sales for Southern region. I come with 18 plus years of work experience. How well this program will help a sales guy and plan to seek opportunities with existing company or start something new on my own?
So some of our work at IIM Ahmedabad actually has been with wealth managers and how relationship managers and account managers can make better pitches to their clients based on an higher level of understanding of behavioral science. In fact, we now have a National Stock Exchange sponsored Center for Behavioral Science where we have a lab where we do research on some of these questions. And we have done some customized programs for wealth managers of a couple of banks already in the space of how they can use technology and a combination of technology and behavioral science to be able to improve the performance of wealth managers, salespeople, uh, so that they are able to better deploy uh, their skills in front of clients and potential clients and get higher levels of investments. So that is in fact quite an interesting and new part of the program. And you know, it would be great to have you on the program because I think there will be a few sessions definitely which are around, you know, at least 2 or 3 I think, which are around wealth management. But in general, even the rest of the sessions on security, on lending, those would also payments, those would also be quite relevant. But 100%, I think you will find interesting stuff on the program.
Yeah, with this, we'll come to the close. There are more questions. We'll get back to you. We have the list of the questions that you have asked. We'll get back to each one of you. We have your email IDs. And
Suresh, one more thing. One more thing. If you could add up, I think few of the candidates were curious to know what is the scheduled timing. So
yeah, I want to come to that next.
Yeah. So
Pulak, you can go ahead with the timings.
Yeah. So
and
10 so 10 to 1 p.m. is the scheduled timing every Saturday and Sunday. and it will start on November 21 and end on December 20. So it is a 10-day kind of a program, which will involve the weekends, and each day will be 3 hours, so 10 to 1 p.m. The course fee is 84,000, which has to be paid in one shot. And what we will do is that after
what is the last date of application?
Yeah, so November 5 is the last date, but seats are fast filling up. So by the time the seats are full, we will try to close it early. So the faster you can apply, it is always better, so that you can secure a seat, because Professor Saha has given us a limited seat band, so we have to work within that. So we will encourage you to do it as fast as possible. And we will reach out to you over mail after this webinar. We will connect to each one of you with the brochure, with the link and the contact details, so that you can get back to us. If you have any further questions which are not answered, we'll be glad to answer it one-on-one, over a mail or and take it forward from here. So, our interaction journey will continue. It's not to end here today.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Professor, for your valuable time, and thanks everybody for joining.
Thank you, Arvind, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
Professor
you.
Sai. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.